Across the Desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
So on our Across the Desk feature this morning, I am hosting journalists who were covering the testimony of Vusimuzi, Matlala, because I want us to look at some of the important themes, things that have come out, but also get your assessment of how things have gone. I've already indicated to you on the 702 open line that I'm interested to hear your views on how members of parliament also treated Matlala. So before I even introduce you to my guests, maybe let me play you a few clips of what came out yesterday in as far as members of parliament's treatment of Matlala is concerned. Listen now to DA Member of Parliament Glenys Breitenberg as she was concluding her session when she was given the opportunity to ask Matlala some questions. This is how she concluded.
You donated vehicles to the Ekurhuleni Metro Police?
Yes, I did.
Why?
Like I said before, I wanted to do medical response for them. So I did that as to show good faith.
Yeah. How many vehicles?
Four.
4 vehicles.
Yes.
What kind?
It was 2 BMWs, 1 Mercedes, 1 VW Golf GTI.
Don't mess around. And was there any benefit from this donation?
No, there was no benefit at all.
Did no business flow from it?
I was expecting it, but it never happened.
Also, not a very good business model.
It was. The intention was...
I see. So I would suggest to you that the reason that you drive around in a convoy like you do got nothing to do with safety. It's just to promote your image and intimidate people.
I don't agree with that.
You don't? Do you have any links, business relationships with anybody who's a member of the Boko Haram gang in Pretoria?
No.
You don't, or you're not aware of it?
No, I'm not.
So you don't have those relationships?
No.
You've admitted to bribing, although you think it's not bribing, police. Have you bribed anybody else in the criminal justice network? Have you bribed judges? Have you bribed prosecutors?
No.
Have you done favors for them?
No.
Have you given them gifts in exchange for favors?
No.
No. So I've only got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to wrap up. In my view, Mr. Matlala, you're not a businessman. You're a crook.
I am.
You're a thief. You're a fraud. And you're corrupt. And the problem in this country today is that people like yourself clothe yourself in the respectability of calling yourself a businessman when you are nothing but a dishonest thug. You make an illicit fortune by stealing from the poorest of the poor. It's people like you and your associates that have robbed generations of South African children of their futures. Shame on you, sir. I'm finished, Chair.
Yeah, that's Glenys Breitenberg, the Democratic Alliance Member of Parliament. Now listen to Action SA Member of Parliament, Darlene James. This is how she addressed Matlala.
Which is actually an event for the engagement party of Karabo, the son of Lieutenant General Sabia.
You mean before I fetched her?
Yes.
She told me to fetch her, then I knew that when I was there.
But did you know before she went there and before she had a bit too much to drink that she was at a Lieutenant General Sabia's son's engagement party?
No, I did not know.
Were you not invited to the party?
No.
Why? Your wife is invited to the party.
Yeah, by her friend. Her friends are not my friends.
Sorry?
All right, so apologies there. That's the wrong clip of Darlene James. Can I have the right clip of Darlene James while it's being cut? Listen to how Julius Malema started off when he was addressing Matlala. This is how he addressed him.
Chairperson,
Mr. Matlala, I wish to, before I ask my questions, send my sympathy to your kids and your wife.
I thank you so much.
Because no one, even a hardened criminal, must have police coming into their house and making their kids to sleep on the floor. No one must ever do that to our kids and to our wives. If they've got an issue with you, they must take you on. Because the procedure would have been, once they arrive, they should have isolated the kids and put them with a female police officer in one room who's reassuring the kids that everything is fine, we are going to be fine, while police are interrogating you or doing their business. If this happened, it deserved to be condemned, Chair, because it was brought to our attention that kids were made to sleep on the floor. As black people, we have inherited trauma, and no one must pass that trauma to our children. And no one must take advantage of our wives. Whatever we do on the streets is between us and the streets and has got nothing to do with our children. And police must understand that wherever they are.
That's Julius Malema there, the EFF leader. Okay, let's wrap up with this one by Darlene James. We found it. This is the Action SA Member of Parliament.
It was on New Year's Eve. The guy told me that
yes, it was on New Year's Eve. I'm telling you, it was on New Year's Eve.
The guy said to me that he stays in he's from Northwest. He was even speaking Tswana. I remember very well that day. I will never forget. They came with a black BMW.
Matlala.
Yes.
And Honorable James.
Honorable James Wayaga.
No. Wait, Matlala.
Why are you raising?
May you, with due respect, honorable members, may you, with due respect, withdraw that statement.
Yes.
I request you to withdraw the statement.
I withdraw the statement.
Yeah, I want to make this request to you. I want you to have a conversation.
Yes.
Don't breathe on each other's neck.
Yes.
Because you are going to make each other uncomfortable. Just relax, take your breath, ask your questions.
I've been relaxed all along, but you can see where this comes from.
I'm talking to the two of you.
All right, so that's Darlene James, who's a Member of Parliament for Action SA. That's still really not the clip that I'm looking for, so I'll find the right one and I'll play it for you. Let me introduce you to my guests now. I've got Babalo Ndenze, who's our EWN parliamentary reporter, and we've got Karyn as well, who's a legal journalist with News 24, joining us now to have a conversation about the testimony of Ket Matlala. Thank you so much, Babalo and Karyn, for making time for us. Let me start broadly with just your impressions of what came out over the last 2 days. At least to me, and I watched most of that testimony, it seems like he's still hiding something, Karyn. It seems like he's protecting certain people. And what's very clear to me is you can tell here that there are two factions here that are fighting. And one faction is going to protect each other and accuse the other faction. The other faction protects each other and accuses the other faction. Karyn, how did you assess it?
Well, I think what we have to take into account here is that Ket Matlala is under oath. And all our previous engagement with him has really been via predominantly witness A, B, and C, who, of course, were involved in that operation on his house on the 6th of December, particularly witness C, who then records this conversation with him that he reflects in his evidence, but we don't hear. And then there's a subsequent conversation, 6-hour conversation that we hear these limited excerpts of, but where witness C tells us these astounding claims about how Matlala was, in both conversations, openly boasting about his connections to high-ranking police officers, claiming to be giving huge amounts of money to particularly Shadrach Sabir through this, FE and Corsi, who of course was mentioned quite predominantly in the evidence before the Ad Hoc Committee, that he makes, says that he's given, Sabir, 300,000 Rand, I think was for his son's wedding. And so there's this collision of very, very damaging claims, against a number of police officers, not just, Feroz Khan's estate in his house, etc., etc. And then we have Brown Mkhwanazi coming and saying no, that in fact, that Matlala's made damaging corruption allegations against Bheki Cele and Fani Masemola. And so there's this very vast ocean of recordings, most of whom we haven't heard. And then Mkhwanazi, I think everyone will argue quite strongly, is a deeply unreliable witness, ascribing certain things to Kat Matlala, ascribing certain allegations of who he's bribing and why. But when he gets before that Ad Hoc Committee and he's under oath, he is a far more conservative figure than he is in all the things that have been said about him. And that may be because he is under oath, but it also may be, as you pointing out, that he is trying to protect the people that he's trying to protect and maybe not being as forthright as he has been in the past when he was engaging allegedly with Mkhwanazi and in these tape-recorded conversations with the PKTT officers and the organized crime officers who were investigating him.
Yeah, and for you, Babalo, how did you assess the testimony? What piqued your interest there?
Look, what really piqued my interest is that he seemed a bit, how do I put it, more reliable than Brown Mkhwanazi at the Matlala Commission last week.
Yeah.
His responses were, more brief. He didn't wax lyrical about anything. He gave one-word responses. He denied most of the allegations against him or the links to underworld, crime figures or syndicates. He also made it quite clear that he was only willing to entertain Senzo Mchunu when it came to issues about money. He says Brown Mkhwanazi, he was always asking him for money. Bheki Cele was extorting him. But as far as politicians are concerned, it looks like it's Senzo Mchunu who he was willing to entertain. And you could see by how he threw Bheki Cele under the bus, calling him an extortionist and, talking about these payments. If there's anything that he went into detail about during these 2 days is really Bheki Cele. That stood out for me, Bheki Cele, and how he went on about Bheki. But as far as the other, implicated individuals in this whole saga is concerned, he didn't really open up about them, as you said. I think he is trying to protect certain people. He also raised concerns about, incriminating himself when it came to the tenders, that specific Medicare 24 tender. But he was, they did allay his fears that he's protected under parliamentary privilege only if he's honest and is not committing any fraud. So I think he did accept that explanation from Kusela Tiko as well as from the evidence leader, Norman Arendse. But he did seem, to stand his ground when it came to being accused of certain things. You could see how he had quite a heated exchange with Darylene James, even calling her a liar at some point. He was quite calm for most of the evidence or the testimony, but he did lose his patience with Darylene James. Being dismissive at some point. But I think, all in all, I think he did seem quite conservative as far as giving details about anyone else except Bheki Cele.
Yeah, I mean, Darylene James also did lose her patience with him as well. Karyn, what do we know about the issue of Shadrack Sibiya? Because it's a bit confusing here. We've got recordings that were played at the Matlala Commission where he appears to be making a confession, we are told, by, was it witness C, but one of those witnesses who were able to extract a confession out of him. And in those recordings, he says, yeah, Sibiya loves money. Oh, that one. I've given him 300,000 rand at his son's wedding. But also even yesterday, he says, I went to fetch my wife at Sibiya's house because there was a party there, but he didn't really know that the wife had gone to that party. I mean, it's sounding really suspicious here. And if he claims that his voice was manipulated and he kept saying, I can show you on my phone now, I wonder if he was going to show us a recording that contradicts what was played at the Matlala Commission. How do you read that?
So I think what's important with that recording at the Matlala Commission is that formally, and you will know this as well, it didn't amount to a confession. We know that there are particular processes with regards to so-called confessions, that if someone admits criminality, you have to bring them before a magistrate, and they then make a statement before the magistrate and say, I'm admitting to X, Y, Z. Witness C has said that Matlala was aware that he was being recorded. My understanding is that a lot of the call is quite muffled. So I think there's going to be a lot of disputes over that whole issue in the time to come. That being said, he does make a number, according to witness C and according to the excerpts that we heard of that recording on that day, his most sort of elaborate allegations of having someone at his beck and call are about Sibiya. And what's fascinating, of course, is that he alleged according to the recordings and what witness C said to us, he said that he had met Sibiya through this taxi boss, Msibi, Mswazi, who's come up very much in both the commission and the Ad Hoc Committee. Of course, the late taxi boss who died in January 2024. And on Sibiya's version to witness C, which of course, is what witness C says was said, he said that he had gone to he'd met Shadrach Sibiya at Msibi's farm, this highly secured venue, and that was how they connected. And of course, Msibi fingered as essentially one of this big five cartel, a major organized crime figure on the evidence that we've had in the Matlala Commission. So he says he meets him through Msibi. And of course, Sibiya's version on this is very much no. I think I met him 3 times. Babalo can correct me on this. And it was all in relation to the SAPS health services tender. There was nothing untoward about it. And certainly no suggestion that, for instance, that he had met him at a family event, which appears to be linked to the marriage of his son again. So there's a connection there. And a lot of the evidence that was given by Matlala, though not damaging in terms of saying, I gave him money or whatever, certainly raises questions over the truthfulness of Sibiya's evidence to the Ad Hoc Committee.
Yeah, I'll come back to you, Babalo, after the break. It's 25 minutes now after 10 o'clock.
Across the Desk with Clement Manyathela on 702.
28 minutes after 10 o'clock, we are in conversation with Karyn, Maughan and Babalo Ndenze. We are reflecting on Ket Matlala's testimony yesterday, and I've been asking you if you think it was worth it. Do you think it's going to go a long way in helping the parliamentary committee get to the bottom of the allegations that General Mkhwanazi has made, that there's corruption and infiltration in the criminal justice system? Babalo, you have sat through in Parliament the testimony of the different witnesses, and I'm interested more in the testimony of Bheki Cele and the testimony of Shadrach Sibiya in versus the testimony of Ket Matlala yesterday. Have you picked up any discrepancies, or does his story really confirm what, let's say, Shadrach Sibiya has said or what Bheki Cele has said?
Well, it does corroborate, the information that was withdrawn by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, if you remember, that he would draw at the evidence that he submitted, that he was requested banking details by Bheki Cele. So if there's anything that really was corroborated and was the committee tried to corroborate with his evidence, was the payments to Bheki Cele. They were not electronic, they were hard cash on separate occasions. But also that Jerry Boshocha, I think it was quite troubling, that bit of evidence on his friend who was kidnapped over a year ago. Shadrach Sibiya spoke about this kidnapping, and he says they tried to find Jerry. They went to various locations and they failed to find him. He says Jerry was his friend, and he also confirms that Jerry was in fact involved in narcotics manufacturing. And on the night he was kidnapped, he was with his brother, and he confirms this. And it looks like the drug cartel link, that it might be real, because you can't just confirm that Jerry was indeed a drug dealer. If Jerry is alive, hopefully, he might be able to be called before the committee, but it looks like members are concerned that this Jerry Boshocha character is not alive. Julius Malema did try to ask him about this, but it looks like only a bit of evidence was corroborated by Matlala as far as Bheki Cele's payments are concerned, and he might come back at a later stage, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, to make a formal submission to retract that evidence. And it looks like the committee, that's the only thing that the committee seems to be in agreement with when it comes to his evidence. But as far as the other discrepancies, there are a few discrepancies with Sibiya, as his submission, as well as submissions by Bheki Cele on, what the reasons were of their relationship. He says it was for information gathering, But Matlala says, no, it wasn't for information gathering. That money was really for Bheki Cele's own personal gratification, for his own personal use. He's a pensioner, he's trying to, I guess, make money or, use money because he's not working anymore. So there are definitely discrepancies with Cele's submission. And I see Cele coming back, Clement, to the committee, definitely, as well as Shadrack Sibiya, all because of Matlala's submission. So it's just a matter of waiting to see exactly what the committee decides when they meet for their housekeeping and how they're going to work with this evidence. They're going to process the evidence, consider it further, and then they will see exactly who they call back to respond to the evidence, because there are definitely discrepancies with Sibiya as well as Bheki Cele's inputs.
Yeah, it's 10:31.
The Clement Manyathela Show, live from the 2025 Science Forum South Africa on 702.
Across the desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
All right, it's 24 minutes before 11 o'clock on our Across the Desk feature this morning. We are reflecting on the testimony of Kat Matlala yesterday at the Kgoshi prison with Karyn Maughan, who is a legal journalist with News 24, and Babalo Ndenze, who's our EWN parliamentary reporter. And I'm taking your inputs and your questions as well on 011-883-0702. Your WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Let's start with your WhatsApp voice notes that have come through. In fact, before that, I've got a message here from someone who says, Clement, the clip you played of Julius Malema gives an impression that he was sympathetic to Matlala throughout yesterday's hearing. Is that a true reflection? That's a message from Duncan. Well, Duncan, if you heard what I actually said in full, you'd know that that's not really the impression that was created. I said, even before I played that clip, even after that, Julius Malema started in that respectful tone, but that didn't mean that he wasn't hard on him. He still asked him the tough questions and held him accountable. Maybe you missed that part, but that's what I said earlier on. And then another person says, hi Clement, I wonder why both Mkhwanazi and Sibiya would want to seem to be protecting, especially the severely implicated General Sibiya, yet throwing each other under the bras. The ground is not holding. This is what Bohale says in Macau. Here's a WhatsApp voice note that's come through.
Clement Dumela, my interesting part is where Kat tries to refer to Jerry Bushoga in the present, but he keeps on slipping and going was. So I don't know if I'm reading a lot into that maybe Jerry is no longer alive, or maybe he's just a slip of a tongue, or maybe he's just saying because he's not here, or they're no longer friends. But I think Jerry is no longer with us, I suspect, and maybe he knows something about that, but I don't know.
Hi, Clement and the team. During Matlala's testimony, his body language always changed whenever a female MP asked him questions. Even when Glenys asked him questions, he was not prepared to entertain her. You could see on his facial expression that he said, I won't give a damn, I won't entertain you. So I don't know why. Maybe because he was in prison. I don't know. David.
Yeah, David, it was quite fascinating. So remember I told you about Darlene James as well, and what she had to say, because she was also very, very, very strict with her. So I'll find some time before we wrap up to play you that clip. Karyn, let me ask you this question about just the capacity of the parliamentary inquiry to probe further, because you have sat at the Madlanga Commission and you also witnessed yesterday the parliamentary inquiry. You can see the differences that the two inquiries sort of take in approach. Do you think that at the parliamentary inquiry, the frustrating thing is the fact that there is no investigative capacity? Because even when someone is lying to you and you're putting to them what you think may be true, but they give you something that contradicts that, you don't have confidence to say that is not true, because you've actually not done work to go further and investigate. So it becomes more about, this is what I say, this is what you say.
So what was fascinating, of course, is if you compare the Matthew Chaskelson questioning of Brian Mkhwanazi to the Ad Hoc Committee's questioning of Kat Matlala, your point is very well made, because Matthew Chaskelson would literally, everything from a small thing like saying, oh, well, I knew about the PKTT being disbanded because there was social media posts. And Matthew Chaskelson is like, no, we've actually done an in-depth look on all the social media, and the news of the PKTT disbandment was broken by a journalist. It wasn't broken on social media, so that is not true. And sort of slipping him up on points by points by points where it's small things, but they start adding up into a picture of credibility that ultimately leads Chaskelson to directly say to him, you are a professional liar. With Matlala, it's somewhat different because this is an extraordinary situation. Babalo will, correct me if I'm wrong, but I cannot think of any situation in living memory where you had someone who is on trial currently for the attempted murder of his ex-girlfriend, Tobeko Tobajane, who is simultaneously giving evidence about a major corruption scandal engulfing the South African Police Service before Parliament, and is being asked about things that directly implicate him in criminality under the veil of this immunity from prosecution. And, there was, I think Babalo will also correct me, but there was one point where he said something about he had provided a statement to the police in relation to Bheki Cele and these allegations about Bheki Cele, and I might have got that wrong. But I'm going to be very curious to see if the events that are linked or come out of this evidence are prosecuted, what the impact of this ad hoc committee evidence will be, and if he will attempt to use it to shield himself, which I think is one of the anxieties that lines around the commission calling him as a witness, which we don't know if that is in fact going to happen. So I think, there were a lot of moments where, I think Arendse evidence leader Norman Arendse did his best to sort of push back and say, what about this? What about this? What about this? But fundamentally, there wasn't that kind of vociferous pushback that you would need in a highly complex investigation like this. And there was this kind of heartbreaking moment. It was very sad where Glenys Breitenbach is literally putting to him all the charges that, he'd faced and been withdrawn and acquitted and. And I think that is at the heart of it, what the frustration of the South African public is like Kat Matlala is accused of a lot of incredibly terrible things. But he, as far as I know, only has one conviction on his own version for possession of stolen property and all these serious accusations around him, but no guarantee that this will ever amount to a substantive criminal conviction and him actually going to jail for a long time.
Yeah, Babalo, your thoughts on that? Because, we are not just having this parliamentary hearing for the sake of it, for the vibes. It's got to lead to something. And I just wonder if, given the lack of investigative capacity, because it's he said, she said, what are we likely to see as the outcome of this inquiry? Do you think, especially having listened to Kat Matlala and, of course, the other testimonies, the inquiry is going to, at the end of the day, get to a point where it sort of has a conclusive view of what they think of the allegations that General Mkhwanazi made?
Actually, I think they might struggle at the end at getting a conclusive view on certain things. And this investigative capacity or lack thereof was raised at the very beginning, and by Darlene James, actually, who insisted on a forensic investigator being part of the committee. She even mentioned it yesterday that she had to go investigate it herself. The issue about the confiscation of his firearms during that search and seizure at his property, and when they were having this argument about who actually gave him back this property. And Kat Matlala saying, no, it was a gentleman who spoke Setswana from the Northwest, but Darlene James saying, no, it was a woman. Something as simple as that, Clement, they could not confirm that as the committee. So the lack of forensic capacity is definitely going to be an issue, and it might lead them to being challenged quite easily towards the end of their inquiry. So I think this is going to be a big issue. Norman Arendse can only do so much. He's got a team of 2 junior counsel with him, and they're working long hours up until midnight when they're in Parliament. So I think they're going to struggle as far as getting conclusive evidence. You know, Kat Matlala also denying those WhatsApp messages between him, Mkhunu, and Brown Mkhwanazi as far as the PKTT is concerned, you know, the disbanding of the task team and the discussion that they had. Kat Matlala is saying that, no, this is fabricated, you know, and he was trying to explain to the committee how easy it is to fabricate a WhatsApp screenshot. So I'm thinking a forensic investigator would dismiss this outright. Someone like Chaskelson, for example, would be able to, you know, get to the bottom of this quite easily because he's got that forensic capacity as the Matlala Commission. So I think Parliament dropped the ball as far as getting, you know, this forensic investigator as part of their terms of reference. Members didn't seem to have an appetite for this. I mean, it might have come at a huge cost for Parliament, maybe, but I think it's something that they should have considered quite seriously at the beginning, as far as just confirming simple details, you know, like the fabrication of a WhatsApp message that could be easily dismissed. So I think it might be an issue further down the line, Clement.
Yeah. There's someone who sent us a WhatsApp message here who says, "Hi Clement, I'm struggling to reconcile Matlala's account of his upbringing, that he was a street kid, abandoned, didn't go to school, with the quality of his English and how he is so articulative, he articulates quite well and reasons very well. Was this a ploy to get sympathy from the committee, which led to the leniency in how some of them engaged him? There's a strong argument suggesting that there's a lot that the committee did not probe or engage him on." Karyn, what are your thoughts on that? Because I did see that some people were frustrated with the senior counsel. I have a bit of sympathy for him because, again, he is not Chaskelson at the Matlala Commission. He doesn't have investigative capacity. So that's all he can do. He can just lead the evidence. But when you look at the story that was told by Kat Matlala, because this listener says, I feel like that story was actually told and it influenced how members of parliament then engage him. I slightly disagree, because if you hear what Darlene James and Glenys Breitenberg says, you'll hear that they didn't get convinced. What do you think of that?
Look, I mean, I think we are it's unprecedented. Like, to have someone imagine going to prison and this guy, you know, whether he's wearing Burberry and he's wearing Burberry slippers, but he's in leg irons. And I think that, like, atmospherically as well, that will also have an impact. And Matlala was, you know, in terms of, and I completely agree with Babalo on this, he was a far better witness than Brian Mkhwanazi was. Brian Mkhwanazi was, I'm a contact agent for crime intelligence, I'm investigating Matlala and I'm investigating Mkhwanazi, and is Mkhwanazi and the Zulu King or CIA, and these over-the-top allegations that, you know, just needed to be prodded 3 times before they fell over. Kat Matlala did not do that. You know, Babalo is right. A lot of the times he would say yes, no. He obviously had, I mean, I don't know if that is the context of his character, but I would imagine that his lawyer had said to him, you don't give more than what they ask you for. And so in that respect, he was far more of a constrained witness. And if someone says to you, look, you know, I don't remember, which was often what he would say, you know, I'm very confused, I'm traumatized, I'm in prison, these people have harassed me on my version, et cetera, I can't remember. Unless you can show and say, but we've got footage of you here, we've got this WhatsApp message that was sent that we've confirmed, which the commission has been able to do, you can only go so far down that road, particularly in circumstances where you have a number of different political parties all pursuing sometimes quite contradictory agendas in terms of what they want from the questioning. So I thought that I think that Arendse was, you know, he's working with a fraction of the budget that the commission is. So, you know, he really has to, a lot of the time they are taking the statements themselves and working insane hours that the commission is not to try and get this process finalized. So I do have an immense amount of sympathy with him on that.
Yeah, and Babalo, for you, how did you, what did you think of the approach of the members of parliament towards Kat Matlala? There was some leniency from others, but certainly most of them were quite tough.
Most of them were quite tough, especially Darlene and Glenys Breitenberg. But, the MK party member, Shongwe, who was asking about his links to Swaziland and, the use of the Dlamini surname, which is, linked to royalty. Some of the questioning was quite strange at some point. He even said at some point that, it's quite sad to see, a black brother who's, trying to succeed in life, and he's been caught up in this, dirty cycle where there are politicians who are pursuing an agenda that's bad for the country. And there was also that moment of vulnerability where members, I could even hear some of them, almost sighing when he was talking about his mother and what happened to her and how he grew up as a street kid. And so there were these moments of sympathy from some members, but I think but most of them did put some tough questions to Matlala. They don't buy any of this, and they know that maybe everyone has suffered in life at some point. But as far as the criminality side of things is concerned, I think members are quite aware that Cat Matlala has a long history of criminality. It dates back 25 years, Clement. I think 2001, his first conviction for housebreaking, because he says the goods that he was selling were stolen during a housebreaking, and that's how he got convicted for housebreaking, and he served time. But I think the questioning at some point was there was a bit of leniency from some parties, but most of the parties, Julius Malema did start off softly, but he did end off quite strongly as far as questioning, and especially on the Jerry Boshoga matter. I think members are concerned that Jerry is no more, and Cat Matlala might be involved. We know that some family members have accused him or linked him to the disappearance. Even Kusela Digo putting questions to him about, this sheet that was seen in some of those pictures where he was being tortured. He was being tortured, or the curtain. And he does change when they speak about Jerry to him, his close friend. He does change his tone a bit. So I do think that the questioning could have been done differently. Maybe if the committee had more capacity to get to the bottom of these things, maybe come with confirmed evidence that no, this is not fabricated, Cat. We dismiss that claim that you fabricated anything. But I do think they could have maybe approached it a bit differently.
Babalo, Ndenze, Karyn, Maughan, thank you so much for making time for us. It's 8 minutes now before 11 o'clock.
Across the Desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.